Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the Backyard Sportscenter podcast. I am your host, Natastic28. Today, I am joined by the champion of Season 2 of the Backyard Baseball Online League, Huntstunt. How are you doing?
What's up? Doing good.
Glad to have you on. Again, congrats on winning the championship just this weekend. I'm sure you're feeling incredible after an amazing playoff run.
Thanks. Still glowing, still enjoying it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did your kids enjoy the parade or Walt Disney World yet?
I told my wife, and she was happy. She said, "Good job." And other than that, it was mostly me and Rickshaw messaging, like, "Yeah, we did it," and that's about it. Getting the congratulations from people in the Discord.
Do you have any celebratory cake and ice cream or anything?
I did drink a beer right after I won. Yeah, and then I watched the game like a couple hours later. That broadcast was really awesome. They were all really good, but bringing on Shine Bloom really takes it to the next level.
Yeah, he is just amazing at, what he does with the broadcast and everything. We're just so incredibly lucky to be able to steal him for, an hour or so there.
Yeah, so entertaining. Even though there were no hits for 4 innings, just, the way he says things keeps you engaged.
There's a couple times where I just couldn't stop laughing at some of the jokes he was making.
Yeah, Wing Quan, gotta wing it.
Yeah, the Wing Quan one. That was a good one. Let's go back to the beginning of the season and the draft. So going into this season, did you have any kind of general idea of, okay, this is the kind of team I wanted to build, or kind of general philosophy of what kind of players you wanted?
Yeah, I just looked back at my old draft notes, and I was going for balance. I didn't want any holes in my defense. That was a big thing for me. I did prioritize high quite a bit, probably more so than other people. I thought that was important for my hitting, at least. I know some people don't need it, but I also wanted contact, tried to get contact and height as much as possible. Hellerman was on my board, but I wasn't sure I was going to take her. But Randy and Hellerman fell to the 3rd round, and there was no one else on my board at that time that I liked more. So obviously, I think that ended up being maybe the biggest pick of the season, for my team at least.
You definitely had the top of your draft was really good, with Larry Walker having the best defense, winning the award for the Goldie Glove Award.
Yep. Larry, yeah, I definitely targeted Larry. I was really happy he fell to me. I did want Mondesi coming in to the draft, and that was actually my first pick. And then I hit some BP with him and did some scrims, and I didn't like his contact and ended up trading him, which was a controversial trade. Did hear people call that a fleece quite a few times. So now that I'm league champ, I think I can set the record straight. That was not a fleece. I think I got the better of that deal and worked out nicely.
Yeah, Larry Walker and Hellerman, you had a really good 1-2 punch there. Your battery mates.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe you made a mid-season trade as well. How did that all come about?
The mid-season trade, that took a lot of finessing with Urikaz. He was very motivated to trade, and initially he wanted to trade with Killer Bat, but a lot of people thought it wasn't a fair trade. I actually started a league vote to vote against that. He wanted a better pitcher, so ended up working out with Trigatriz to do a three-team trade, sending Randy Johnson and Alexis Weiss and Dante. He wanted Dante to Urikaz. I ended up getting K and PJ, and ended up cutting some dead weight. I had a bad draft pick, my round 9 draft pick, Ellen Martinez, which was like horrible pick. Got rid of her. And so that midseason trade did kind of adding K, and Arlene Perez. So those two made my defense like even better, and also probably gave me some more contact. So I think my average probably went up a bit in the second half of the season. So it was a pretty key trade. Glad I went through.
Yeah, Kay had in the regular season games, Kay had 8 hits, 2 doubles, and a homer as well. On Arlene had 6 hits.
Yeah.
So you did way better with Arlene than you did with Alan Martinez.
Oh yeah.
And even only 1 hit difference from Alexis Weiss as well.
Yeah.
So you did about the same as you did with Alexis with Arlene, which is really impressive based off of the round differential that they are respectively drafted in.
Yeah. I like Arlene. She's got sneaky pop. I always swung a line drive with her. Got a couple doubles, I guess. But Kay was pretty big in the postseason. Had that home run against Loba, which was the only run of that game. That was game 1.
Yeah, Arlene, for people that aren't aware, Arlene is basically a clone of Maria Luna, unboosted.
Mm.
If you kind of are familiar with that, that's Arlene and I'm forgetting the other one. There's another one that's basically a clone of that too. A few people think that they're kind of underrated in as far as generics, so people that aren't as familiar with them just look at the raw numbers and think that they should be drafted a little bit later than their actual value is. So we'll see if anyone drafts the Maria clones a little bit sooner this season and maybe possibly overdrafts them based on the results that you got with her.
Yeah, I'll have my eye on her for sure. I think I overlooked some of the mid-tier power players. I kind of drafted either speed, I kind of wanted to go for sevens, or power, but some of those mid-speed, mid-power ended up being kind of important, like Arlene and even PJ was kind of clutch in the championship. I know it's easy to hate on PJ.
One thing that, if you look at your roster, is the speed. It definitely seemed like that was something that you were looking into when you drafted this team, is that you wanted a fast team.
Yeah. No, I was looking at the wrong draft stat. I was looking at like raw speed originally, and I was avoiding like the really low numbers. And I didn't realize that like the 2-digit speed, like 19 was like the same as like a 40.
Oh, yeah.
So I was avoiding I did make that mistake, but yeah, I ended up getting fives or better and mostly sixes and a couple sevens. So it was definitely a priority. But that's how I ended up with Ellen Martinez, because I thought that since she was like a 40, that was somehow better than like a 19, when I could have had someone equally slow but with a better bat.
Ah, that makes sense.
So that was kind of a bad mistake.
So what did you think about, because in your initial team, you drafted Dante and Jordan Dorner, a Dante clone. So what about the Dante / clones that you liked or were looking at in the draft?
Yeah, I like their speed and their kind of defense. But there was kind of like a threshold where there was like a 30-player gap where I just didn't like anybody. And it was like Libby Futterman and like the Jeremy Burnett's clone.
Oh, yeah. Jillian Payne.
Yeah, and those both got taken like right before me, like 1-2. And there was like no one else I wanted until Dante. And then the next round came around, and the Dante clones were still there, so I ended up with 2 Dantes.
Yeah, Jordan had a 441 average, and Dante, you were batting 500 before the trade. So you did really well with both of those players.
Yeah, their speed was nice. Yeah, it's kind of I'm not sure why I did better with Dante. I wonder if that's like the left-handed advantage. I don't know if he gains a step on his run to first.
That's definitely possible. But I know a lot of times people will put like one of their weaker defenders at second base. So if you have like a Dante, which is a lefty, and you're grounding at the second, and they have like a slow second baseman, you might be able to get a little bit more hits, especially when people are pitching inside, like the inside bottom corner. Just been like the meta, which we'll talk about more once we get into your playoff run.
Right. No, yeah, that's a good point. That could be it. It could also just be chance or position in the lineup. I don't know.
Could also be that too. You also had the Mo Vaughn clone. How did you like Alicia Blakely this season?
I love her defensively. She's a beast. I love not having to worry, just chucking it to first, especially with like Kay at third base, who Kay has very strong arm, but like pretty poor accuracy. You never have to worry about gunning it over to first base. And the height as well at first base. You can rob line drives and catch pop ups easily. As far as offensively, I ended up swinging line drive with her exclusively in the second half of the season because I just was not getting enough contact in the first half of the season. It just wasn't paying off. Like I wasn't getting enough homers from her. So I ended up slotting her second and then putting Larry behind her in the playoff, which is kind of weird.
What was the thought process about putting PJ at cleanup?
Well, that was kind of like it for my team. There's the logic of putting your best players starting with the first batter so they get the most at bats. But I mean, clearly Larry's my best, but Kay and Alicia are my next best. So then Larry bats them in. And then after that, Arlene is my next best. But I kind of wanted to try and get a couple people on base with PJ and Thorner and then have Arlene try to hit them in, which rarely happened, but sometimes.
Pitching and defense and speed definitely seemed like it was the name of the game for you because you only hit 6 home runs on the entire season and only scored 32 runs in 11 games during the regular season.
Yeah, I did suffer from like the lefty outfield obstacles, the walls, in terms of home runs. I guess that doesn't affect runs scored as much, but in terms of home runs, Larry and Alicia definitely got robbed of quite a few. My initial home field was Playground Commons. I will consider next season. I might kind of avoid lefties a bit because of, but I guess we're changing the strike zone, so it won't be all inside.
Yeah, do not know what the final solution is going to be, but definitely excited to see variety of pitches and pitch locations moving forward instead of just the same pitch and same location over and over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. Even though I was able to exploit that and win, I'm down for a change because I got tired of throwing left hooks as well.
One thing that was really interesting as far as your, I think Alex asked you this question right after on the stream right after the game, but I wanted to ask you kind of a similar question and get your answer on here. Your first game to Question Monkey, you lost by 5 runs, lost 7-2. Was it what happened between that game and the game against Gonzos in week 2, which you won 6-0?
I had like invested so much time into the draft and like people were criticizing my early season trade and I don't know, I was just feeling the pressure and totally collapsed that game. Like sometimes you can collapse in backyard baseball and everything goes to shit and people just stack up runs. That's kind of how people got such massive run differentials, like especially in the front yard. When a team collapses, it gets ugly, and yeah, it got ugly against QM, and he took full advantage of some bad pitches. I didn't learn the whole inside spamming yet. I wasn't aware of that at that time. So, but yeah, the main thing was the nerves, and so the after I got that first loss out of the way, I knew I could beat Gonzos, and the Steel Eye game was closer than it should have been. But then I stopped being nervous, and I just kept winning. I won 9 in a row, which was pretty sweet.
Yeah, you lost the first game and the last game and you won everything else.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Which is kind of funny.
Yeah,
Baseball, right?
but a lot of those games were a lot of those games were close along the way, and they could have gone either way. But I was fortunate to come out on top.
Your best 2 games were against Gonzos and Alex.
Yeah, the Alex game, it kind of collapsed for Alex. A couple errors and aggressive base running. I had a big lead early, but Alex was probably a better player than the 5-0 shows.
I mean, he almost made the playoffs, so I definitely agree with that.
But coming into this season, I was worried about Loba, Arco, and Battlehammer. Mostly worried about the Loba game. I kind of underestimated Visery, and I underestimated Question Monkey. James ended up being really strong as well.
Battlehammer really impressed me because in the and when you're doing like the new build tournament, I think when he was just trying to get his get the hang of the game back again, his first couple games where he was kind of struggling a little bit, but he turned it around once the season started and had the best record in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a solid team. A lot of people have scrimmaged with his team against me, and it's probably about split the win to loss. Just keeping Pete off base and keeping him from scoring, it's a challenge.
Now I want to get into a little bit with your ace who won the Clanky Award, Amanda Hellerman, a 1.32 ERA this season, a .88 whip, 94 strikeouts in the regular season. That's just filthy.
Yeah, if the strike zone gets changed, there might not be another season like this.
You also had some pretty long games as well because you had 77 innings pitched, and it would have only been 66 innings.
Yeah, it should have been.
You had more innings than what a normal season would have been. So it looked like you had some extra inning gains as well in there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that makes it even more impressive that your ERA was that low.
Yeah, the went 11 innings against Steel Eye, 24 strikeouts in that game.
Oh wow, that might be a record right there.
I think it is, yeah. And then which also boosted the strikeouts on the season. The ERA definitely stayed pretty low. Of course, Frank and Christina had similar ERAs over in the front yard. But I did rack up a lot of Ks, and then Amanda was, I guess, inarguably the best in the postseason.
Yeah, Hellerman was definitely the star of the playoff and the World Series for sure. I think it's a good transition into the actual playoff games that you had. So because you had the second seed, I believe it was, you had to bye the first round, correct?
Yes.
So your first game, you played Question Monkey, which was a 6th seed, and he beat Visery 5-2 at TCA. So the first game, you won 1-0, and that was at Ekman. Do you remember anything about that game?
Yeah, that one was a grind for sure. That one went to extra innings. We were both pitching very well. Question Monkey was definitely an underrated team. Like his team was very solid in my opinion, and I think he should have had a better record in the regular season. But anyways, he made the playoffs, and it was a really tough game. I guess it went to extras. I'd have to look up, went a couple innings in extras. I can't remember how I won, how the final run came in.
I'm looking up the stats right now, and it looks like
I don't even see a run in the stats for my stat.
okay, it looks like they got split up. So it looks like Alicia Blakely had an RBI double or single to score Wing Quan.
Okay.
If I'm looking at so that's what it seems like for that game.
Okay, it's coming back to me. It was a power up, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was a really tight game. I had a power up. It'd been a screaming line drive, and I swung with Stephanie Morgan. This was maybe the 6th inning, and missed just because the pitch location was too good. I mean, it was a strike, and it's kind of surprising that she missed, but she missed. And then we ended up going a few more innings, and I ended up getting another double play, and it was an undergrounder that drove in the winning run.
And then in game 2 was a offensive explosion for you. You scored 6 runs, won 6-4 at Cement Gardens.
Yeah, that was just a chaotic Cement Gardens game.
Almost everyone on your team had a base hit except for Stephanie Morgan. Even Amanda got a hit there.
I remember there were quite a few homers, and ground road doubles down the third base line into the alley.
Kay hit a home run. Actually, there was only Arlene had a double. That was the only double the entire game, it looks like.
Yeah, that one would have been ground ruled.
Once you get it bouncing, it just can bounce for a while.
Yeah, I think that was the first game I started bringing out the bunt in the playoffs, and there was some base running chaos that game that ended up in runs. But QM, that's what I call him. I don't know if Question Monkey. He ended up having a couple of home runs into the alley. The most Hellerman was hit in the playoffs, and it was a pretty close game as well.
The cement fields definitely seem to have an increase in offensive scoring. Cement Gardens and Tin Can Alley.
For sure. Yeah, I wasn't happy to play there. I wanted my controlled grass environment where my defense could shine, but we made it out.
And I think possibly with that game, you kind of figured out that you can exploit people's defenses using your top tier speed that you had.
Yeah.
And cause all the craziness on the base pads.
Yeah, I started getting a little feisty with the running, started bunting. I didn't do that as much against Loba, but it was definitely the game plan against Killer Bat.
So you ended up sweeping that series against QM. Then you went on to the backyard finals and faced the reigning champion in Loba and the Marlins. Won both of those games 1-0. Game 1 was one of the craziest games I've ever seen, honestly, where Hellerman had like 11 strikeouts and I believe it was like 5 walks, which I know you intentionally walked Chico, I think like 2 or 3 times that game, which is part of it, but still just seeing Hellerman with 5 walks just like boggles your mind just seeing that stat line.
I know, it doesn't make sense, right? I was listening to y'all's commentary, and you're like, is it possible she's having accuracy issues this early?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I was pitching the most conservative game of my life. I was determined that game to give Loba nothing to hit, and that's what happened. There, like, not a single clean pitch in the zone. It was all like catching edges, and I was gonna like pitch Chico extra far outside of the zone as well. And the first at bat ended up walking him in like 5 or 6 pitches because Loba just had studied the strike zone really well, and he actually had studied Hellerman's left hook. I saw him in the server studying her curveball. So he had an incredible eye that series, and so then I just decided, I got the homer in the first inning, and then I was like, we're just gonna intentionally walk him this game. I'm already up 1-0.
Because that was the game there Kay hit that home run, leadoff home run for you.
Yep.
And then it was when you kept intentionally walking Chico. Chico got to third base, I think, like every single time, but just could not get the run in it. And then there was that one play where it looked like Chico was gonna. There was a bunt that was down the third base line, and Walker was going towards it, but it looked like Chico would have beat Walker to the plate, but then Loba turned him around. I think that play really changed the course of the entire postseason.
True. Yeah. It looked like he could have scored.
Because if he scores that run there, it's a tie game. Who knows what that game or series turns into?
Yeah. It was already like a nuts series that could go either way. All just resting on one mistake from either team.
Yeah, that game it was just so the margin of error was just so close. I mean, even though it was a 1-0 game, it just felt like there was so much action on the base paths and there were so many runners. And then also you had I forget what inning, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th inning, where Jordan Thorner got to like second base, and then you tried to send him to third, but then he got caught in a pickle and got out, and that was huge for the Marlins, but they couldn't capitalize on getting out of that mess.
Yeah. Yeah, I was basically just surviving after the Loba pitching mistake in the first inning. And then he picked other than that one mistake, he threw like basically a perfect game the first game. And then he picked it up in the second game and gave me absolutely nothing to hit for, I don't know, 5 or 6 innings.
Yeah, believe yeah, there was like no hits in game 2 until like like you said, like the 5th or 6th inning. And in that game, it did seem like the Marlins are starting to get some runners on as well. But once you did get runners on that game, you just kept eating away at the Marlins' stamina. And then eventually you got those grounders and bunts to land, and you got their defense in positions where you didn't want them to be in, or that Lobo didn't want them to be in. I think he had Marty pitching, and then he had Sally pitching.
Right. I guess he had some stam issues with Diana. And that's where, yeah, it works in my favor with Hellerman. I can go those extra innings and see what happens. I know they're gonna run out of Stam before me usually, and then I can start hitting. Like I didn't get a hit. Yeah, I didn't start hitting until the Stam dropped from his pitchers, and he had to start changing them out. And then it was ultimately Diana being at first base that ended up with the error that sent Thorner home for the win.
You're just slowly eating away at that stamina until you finally broke through and scored that 1 run. And I think it was like the 10th or 11th inning. And then in the bottom, Diana Hayes got the final out, and Chico is sitting on deck.
Yeah.
From like a spectator standpoint, I was hoping that Chico would come up. Just the anticipation and the excitement that would have been mounting at that at bat would have been amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I'm sure you felt a lot better not ending it with Diana.
Absolutely. Every time Chico comes up, it's a sweat. But I did decide to pitch to him that game, and even with the hardest sweaty pitching possible, he still got a couple singles just on his speed and contact, I guess, but managed to keep his hits in the ballpark.
Yeah, so you escaped the series of Loba and moved on to the championship against the Orioles and Killer Bat, which we just had that series this past weekend. And game 1, you ended up winning 4-0. That game, pull up the stats from that one. Looks like you got Alicia Blakely got a triple in that game, and Wing Kwang got a triple as well. 2 doubles from Larry Walker that scored 2 runs. So that was a Larry Walker game right there. Had 8 hits, 4 singles, 2 doubles, and 2 triples to score your 4 runs. Stephanie and Amanda also had RBIs in that game.
Hey, that's solid bottom order RBIs, but surprisingly one-sided. Coming into this game, I wasn't sure. All those bats, but he's got like 4 elite bats. Maybe not elite, but top tier. He's got 2 elite bats in Pablo and Jane, and then like Bobby and Cheryl are top tier for sure. Frank is pretty good as well. So, he's been lighting people up all season. I didn't really know how the game was going to go, and held him to 2 hits somehow. But I kind of knew how his defense was going to play, and the game plan was to put the ball in play and just base run like a madman. Like I told Freak Show, like I'm gonna get into pickles intentionally, and he's gonna overthrow Pablo. He's gonna overthrow Jane Davis, whoever. That's pretty much how it went.
Yeah, the main weakness of the Orioles was their lack of arms and lack of height.
Yeah, that height.
Lack of speed as well. So when I was kind of like, and when I was talking to, Alex going in the previous episode, one of the ways that I was kind of anticipating this series going, if it favored in your way, was that, you exploiting the Orioles, subpar defense. And that's what, with your speed and your contact, and that's what happened in game 1 for sure. You just ran all over the place.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, I didn't have many 4-run performances, so to get one in the championship felt nice.
Did you ever consider intentionally walking Pablo or any of the Orioles?
He had too much protection, so no. And because I guess I had success against Chico in the second Loba game. Yeah, but mainly the protection. Just had to go at him.
And then in the last game, the one that you ended up winning. There was like no hits until like the fourth or fifth inning, and then you got into that crazy pickle and overshot Frank and went right into left field and scored your 2 runs there, and that was it.
Yeah, an ill-advised pickle against probably most defenses. Maybe even in this case. I mean, Frank should have caught it. He's a 4 height, but he's also really slow, and he's a pitcher, so I don't know, he wasn't ready for it.
I think sometimes in that case, like if you click on the base instead of player, it will throw to the base instead of the player, and it will go like wide or high, and it'll go past them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what happened in that case, but I'm sure if Isri is listening to it, he'll say, "Oh no, it's because of this stat and this thing and this,"
Right.
and correct all of us and put the technical details as far as what actually happened there.
Right. It kind of helps that Serena Diamante has had such a strong arm, I think, because the fielders can't handle it. Shell Reynolds too. We saw all those throws bounce off the players, and that's probably contributed as well. Like Frank just couldn't handle that fast throw.
Yes, Serena Monte with the 100 arm. And then it all came down to Pablo Sanchez and your 9th round tradee superstar, Arlene Perez.
Yeah, it was such a good finish. Over the shoulder catch. We were talking.
Maybe your Golden Glove winner should have been Arlene Perez, not Larry Walker.
I know, right? I was always rotating Arlene Perez away from the inside field of the batter, the pole field. And since I was up 2 and it was bottom of the 6th, I didn't even make the switch. Like this one time ended up being Arlene Perez stayed there. I don't know if you remember, I was near Morgan to make the catch, usually.
Yeah, I know you were doing a lot of defensive rearrangements there, and I know they were both you and Killer Bat were making a bunch of defensive changes.
Yeah, I was just swapping Arlene and Stephanie Morgan based on the pole, the inside field of the hitter. But this time I just didn't make the switch after Jane, who's lefty. So Pablo's righty. I don't know, it was the bottom of the 6th, 2 outs. I just didn't make the switch. And then, so kind of funny, Arlene ended up being in left field. That was worst pitches of the game, and Pablo got a hold of it. Probably should have been a double, but Arlene with that jump and catch at the wall. Classic way to end it.
Yeah, that clip is definitely going to be one of the highlights when we go back in the history books and remember this series and your championship. What an amazing grab to end it.
Yeah, it's exciting. A little extra excitement at the end.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to bring up about your championship? Or anything else about the league?
I don't know. I'm kind of interested in the inside pitching debate. Like, curious to see how that's gonna move forward with the strike zone changes.
There's a few different things that we're trying to.
Yeah, a few different considerations.
Yeah, maybe based on we think of like the top 3 or top 2 kind of ideas that we're thinking of and have people test them and see which one they like better. Or I don't know exactly what we're gonna do yet, so don't hold me to that. But I don't know exactly what the plan is, but I know there's been some suggestions about changing accuracy so that it's not as you can't just pinpoint and throw, like Vizri said, you're throwing M&Ms with those left hooks.
Yeah, that will. I don't know if I would draft a pitcher as high. If I think that will definitely affect the drafting. But yeah, we'll just have to test it out and see how it plays before the next season.
So I gotta ask you, will you be coming back for season 3 to try to defend your title?
Yeah, I think I'm coming back. It was a big commitment, but I really want to draft again because the draft was so much fun. It's like 3 or 4 days of like condensed fun, and then you have to play out the rest of the season, and it's kind of a grind. But I really love the draft and then what you did.
What did you think of using the generics?
I liked it. It's just like more players to me.
It really just opens the game up when you can use all the non-playable characters or tradition that's you're supposed to, but then, we don't care about that. We do what we want and we use the generics. And I'm sure you're glad we use the generics too, because you had Amanda Hellerman.
For sure. My favorite generic. And yeah, I guess maybe the last, I guess I kind of wanted to just say that I know, like, I pitched inside, like, the bulk of the season, and especially in the playoffs. But I think everyone else was doing it too. People complained about me doing it, and I kind of felt like I was the villain sometimes. Like, people were rooting against Hellerman because she was such a good pitcher. But I think I was just doing it better than everyone else, and that's how we ended up winning. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I know you use what you have, and you figured out the meta, and you exploited that. Within the rules better than anyone. I know it's kind of annoying. You executed the game plan better than anyone else.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you look at my team, there's not a ton of offensive production to be had. I spent the third round draft pick on Hellerman, and that's like a considerable disadvantage if I don't pitch her to the full potential that she's capable of. So yeah, I kind of like didn't have a choice if I wanted to win. But I took some heat on that, so I don't know, I wanted to put it out there.
Well, I know everyone has their opinions about like the pitches and the pitch locations and certain strategies that people will be using, and people just have favorite players or favorite coaches that they like to cheer for or whatever, or your friends in the community that you want to see win. Like you mentioned, like Freak Show wanted you to win, for example.
Yeah.
So, everyone has their kind of, favorites, or, maybe you wanted Pablo to win, for example, because, it's Pablo. So, there's a lot of different things. But, as long as you have, people might get, a little bit frustrated about the gameplay. But as long as you're respectful and, have a good attitude towards it, I don't think I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all good. I just felt the need.
How I look at it is, if anybody else or any of the people that made the playoffs had Hellerman, they'd be doing the exact same thing that you did.
Yeah.
And it was within the rules, so that's, kind of what you have to do and if, what happens is, we learn from what happens the previous season, and we, the admins and league admins, we get together and try to think of, a rule set that might make the gameplay more fun and entertaining for everyone, and we try to come back and make a better league the next season. So that's what we did the previous two, from season 0 to season 1 and then to season 2, and now we'll evaluate, and Visitor will be making a survey, end of season survey, for all the players' feedback, which we'll take into consideration for next season as well. So really excited to see if season 3 is as exciting as this season was. We're going to be in for a heck of a ride. I know that for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's been a lot of excitement. So, each season we've increased the number of players. I think we're going to have more than 24 players sign up next season. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, seems like it. Be interesting to see how that works out. Different leagues, or
we had just in January, we've had over 50 people join the Discord.
Yeah.
Which is really incredible, considering that's like a seventh of the size of the Discord right now, just from people that joined January.
Yeah, it's booming. Coming from Reddit or Twitch, maybe.
Yeah, tell all your friends. Have them join in and play some backyard baseball.
Will do.
So unless you have anything else you want to say, I think that's going to do it. Thanks again, Huntstunt, for playing this season, and congrats on winning, and thanks for taking some time out of your evening to join us here.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, really appreciate you having you play this season, and look forward to see what you can do to try to repeat.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, that's going to do it all for us at Backyard Sportscenter. Until next time, which will probably be a preview of the RBBL season and predictions. So we'll see you guys at that time.